So, the new Path of Exile leak just dropped, and if you just played the game for the first time without being guided into it or asking someone for help, you've probably already noticed that there are a lot of items on the ground. More than can fit in your pockets, and more than your brain can handle to parse. The game can't even display them properly, and you have to switch them on and off to see their true location. All items of the same type, rare items, magic items, normal items, currency, divination cards, look and sound the same, even if they greatly differ in relevance and value. So in today's video, you will learn how to make a custom loot filter with the popular community tool FilterBlade.xyz created by NeverSink's so that you can make your loot stand out based on what's important to your character. But first, I'm excited to tell you about the sponsor of this video. A couple of weeks ago, I made the switch to Opera GX as my main browser, and I wish I had done it earlier. It's got so many great features, I won't be able to list them all. I used to worry about how many tabs I had open because of my game performance, but with Opera GX, you have complete control over your RAM and CPU usage and can limit how much you're willing to let your browser use. You can also limit the browser's access to network bandwidth, so file uploads and downloads do not restrict your network performance in-game. As online people, we of course all have multiple social media accounts, and sometimes it can be hard to keep up with all the respective apps. With Opera GX, they're all integrated into my sidebar, which allows me to keep track of them easily because I get notifications right here in my browser. Music streaming via Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music, and more is also integrated right here, and whenever you start streaming video or audio in one of your browser tabs, the player automatically pauses and then resumes once the playback in your tab ends. It comes with a dark themed UI that's easily customizable, with a built-in forced dark mode for websites, built-in ad blocker, built-in VPN, and if you want more utility, Opera has its own extension store, and it's also fully compatible with Google Chrome extensions. Whenever you want to make your switch, there's an import tool that allows you to swiftly import all your settings from your previous browser to GX to make the transition as smooth as possible. Opera GX also outperforms other browsers on your mobile, and it runs great, even on my very dated smartphone. Both desktop and mobile versions of Opera GX are completely free. Use the link below or scan the QR code on screen to make your move now. Before we start going in, let me first tell you that you do of course not have to make an item filter yourself. First of all, because FilterBlade has a lot of awesome presets that essentially already are filters, so it pretty much does half or even all the legwork for you depending on how custom you want it. But also, you may not want to use a custom filter at all. Especially if you've never made or used an item filter besides the default before, you probably don't even know what you want from a filter. There are a lot of folks out there who used to make filters and publish them for free download. I say used to because the complicated days of downloading filters as files and putting them into your Path of Exile folder are pretty much over outside of custom sounds, which we'll get into later. And most people who still make filters make them on FilterBlade.xyz, which is integrated with Path of Exile and can link to your account, so your filter is actually hosted on your profile. That means with Path of Exile in this century, you can actually specifically look up the profile of any content creator you're watching and follow or copy the filter that they're using, or any other filters that they decided to make public. You basically just have to find their profile. If you're not sure, type !profile in their chat. Usually they have their bot set up to respond with a link to their profile. Most of the time, you can also just type their name and POE into Google and find the link. For example, this here is Balormage's profile. As you can see, he has several public filters. Next to his personal filter, there are different ones for league starting, for general mapping, and stricter versions for very high level and monster dense parts of the game. The professional terminology used here is juiced content. If you are new and playing in the softcore trade version of the game, one of these is probably perfect for you. You can just follow all of them, try the league start one, and stick with it until you feel it shows too many items and then step up to the next one. One last note, neither following nor copying on the POE page allows you to modify these filters in FilterBlade currently. You can only edit the filter code directly on the website. Some creators though make their item filters public on FilterBlade, so you can copy them there. For this, you want to go to the profile on FilterBlade.xyz and search their profile there. Careful, it's case sensitive, so you have to get the uppercase and lowercase letters in their names right. Composing a filter yourself can be very fun, and there's some cool things you can do, but the game is complicated enough to learn, and it's probably best to first pick up the fundamentals. With that out of the way, of course, feel free to watch the video to the end. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to get rid of you, I just don't want to create the impression that making your own filter in PoE is mandatory. It's not even strictly better for everyone. But I want to make my own filter, and that's what we're going to do. So first, we'll just make something very basic. A NeverSync filter with some presets, so it works for our League Start leveling with a caster character, and allows for some own custom sounds for nostalgia reasons, and maybe some fine-tuning. Then I'll show you how to get that running in your game. So we use the browser to go to filterblade.xyz, and if not already logged in, use the sign in button on the top right to sign in with your Path of Exile account. If you're already logged into your Path of Exile account in the browser, you just have to click authorize, otherwise you're forwarded to the Path of Exile login mask before. After you've authorized FilterBlade to work with your account, you'll be back in the overview section. There are 7 sections or steps to filter creation. My filters, overview, customize, simulate, style, advanced, and save and export. In My filters, you can see the filters you've already created in the past and also your presets. Presets are basically building blocks of filters that contain many little custom changes to the filter rules at once. I'm not going to explain how to make presets, but we are going to use presets in our creation process. In Overview, you get to select which version of the basic NeverSync filter to base your filter on. You can adjust the style and apply presets. Styles are basically presets that only apply color schemes for borders, background, and text of the different items. We first select Strict. You can go with the semi-strict as well, but it really will show too much already in early acts in my opinion. For styles, I generally lean towards crimson for a strong red tint for everything that's supposed to highlight, but if you want to go with other colors, the world is your canvas. You can see a basic preview of how it will look with different kinds of items on the bottom. Next, we press presets and it opens the preset browser. Since we're making a leveling filter, we use the list on the left to filter for leveling presets and add leveling, caster, summoner, totem, mines, etc. as well as leveling, low currency, strong highlight to make sure no currency like wisdom scrolls or portal scrolls or transmutation orbs is hidden early. Then we also want to use the template for custom sounds. Look for custom sounds in the list or type custom sounds into the search field. This will already put custom sounds on all relevant groups, so you only have to change the name of the specific sounds in a later step. Now with all selected, press apply and we're done in this step. In Customize, you see an overview of all the different filter sections and categories. This is where you make most of the nitty-gritty changes to the filter. For example, like deciding which divination card is valuable enough to be flashbanging you, just highlighted, just shown, or even completely hidden. You can move the cards between the tiers by dragging and dropping them in between, and you can also customize the formatting of each tier or straight up make it hidden. It's really straightforward, but for now we're skipping this part altogether because the underlying base filter is really good and trustworthy since it has been fine-tuned for years. In Simulate, you get to test how the filter will look and sound before you even load it up in the game. This is super fun because it lets you randomly generate a bunch of loot of specific item types at a given zone level. Zone level is relevant because filters have rules that change the formatting of items not only based on the item level of the item, but also based on the level of the zone you drop it in, the drop level. This feature is awesome and cool, and I don't even want to start thinking about how long it must have taken to implement something like this, which is not really necessary but makes the tool incredibly fun and efficient to use. For example, you can go and test how it feels like to open a Diviner's Strongbox in a tier 11 map if you're really lucky. Or you could see how the loot you dropped from Merville in the end of Act 1 could look like. You can click on each piece of loot to hear its drop sound again if it has one, and you can directly see the rules that apply to the group that the item appears as part of in this instance. You can click the Find and Customizer button for the website to directly take you to the specific rule that applies to the item in this example. You can also copy-paste items out of the game inventory or chat into the recreator at the bottom to find out which rule applies to the item at this area level so you can modify the rules. Or you can manually recreate the item. In Style, we get to apply our custom swag to the filter. In order to be able to hear the sounds when testing online, we need to upload them to FilterBlade first. We click Manage, and if there are any sounds here, clear all to clear up the page. Then we press Upload New Sound Files and upload our selection of sounds we want to allocate. The sounds need to be in your Path of Exile folder in My Games in the Documents folder of your Windows account. Go to this PC, click Documents, double-click My Games, double-click Path of Exile, or copy-paste or type %, user profile, %, \documents, \myspace games, \path space of space exile into the navigation bar of your file explorer. I also have this folder of sounds from another action RPG that a friend of mine digitally recreated that I'll link down below. We just drop the sound files here and then select them to be uploaded to FilterBlade. Now sadly it only shows the name of the rules that use these sounds, but that doesn't really tell us much. But we see how many rules each sound is used for, and thanks to the custom sounds preset, we can go by the name of the default custom sounds. Note that all items in Path of Exile have a default sound effect based on what they are, such as a metallic noise for weapons or a high-pitched pling for orbs. That natural drop sound is separate from the drop sound that comes from the filter, the alert. An item can have both the default sound and a filter alert sound, and both sounds can play at the same time. For shown uniques and drops of similar magnitude, I'll go with the block blade 1 sound. For currency stuff, I want gold. For stuff that may be valuable, I'll use select. Things that are very valuable get the short version of the quest done sound. For valuable maps, I also want to use the select sound, and for regular maps, I'll use the skull sound. After we assign the sounds, we can go back to simulate to make sure we pick the right sounds and are happy with how the filter works. This is also where we can fine-tune stuff. Like for example the rules added by the leveling low currency strong highlight preset, which mostly use default filter alert sounds or no alerts at all. Not a big deal, but if you want to change it, you can just press the button to get to the campaign specific rule section in the customize tab and add sounds by pressing sound, selecting the custom category and adding the sound you want. Gem for transmutes and alks, ring for augments, whetstones and scraps, and flippy for scrolls. Here you can also disable the natural drop sound of items if you please. In advanced, you can make some literally advanced changes. This section has its uses, but it's like the name says, advanced, and for most filters you won't need to use it. We move on to save and export, where we get to enter a name and a description for our filter and decide whether it is going to be public or private and which platform it is for. Then you press sync or download, and you decide whether you want to get a file and put it into your PoE folder the old school way by hand, or whether you want to save it on your account. Since the future is now, we'll save it to the PoE account. Make sure you create a new filter instead of overriding existing ones on your PoE profile. And that's it already, you're good to go. Open the options in-game and select your filter in the Game tab. If your sound files are in the correct directory, it should work as soon as it arrives in-game. If you already have a character, you can go ahead and test it. One more thing, you should make sure that the option Hide Filtered Ground Items is activated. It's right below the Item Filter drop-down menu. I believe this is activated by default now since a couple patches ago, but still make sure it's activated. This makes the game not render any 3D models for items that have been hidden by the filter. It reduces the load on your computer and does noticeably improve your game performance if you're using a good filter in very dense juice content. And another important thing, when using FilterBlade, consider switching off your adblock or adding an exception to your adblocker for FilterBlade to support the hosting and maintenance of this awesome community tool. If you like FilterBlade and it makes your life easier, consider supporting them on Patreon to help pay for the hosting costs, or write NeverSink a thank you note on Twitter. If you want to learn to know NeverSink a little bit, check out the most recent episode of Faded Connections, a podcast I host together with BallorMage, where we talk to different people from the Path of Exile community. On Thursday night before the League launch, we discussed all the pre-launch topics like patch notes, currency changes, and starter builds for 3.19, together with NeverSink and Sir Gog. We're doing this podcast between once every couple of weeks and 2 times per week depending on the stage of the PoE cycle. If you want to know the guests and the time for the next episode, type faded.fyi/next into the browser. This will always forward you to a countdown timer for the next scheduled episode. That's the time the episode will be taking place live on twitch.tv/catmasterop, and they usually premiere 24 hours after here on my YouTube channel and can be found on almost all podcast platforms. If you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching this long. Watch time and repeated watching are even more important than clicking and liking the videos, and you're helping the channel grow. Let me know in the comments below how you found this particular video and what kind of video in this style you would like me to make next. Also, check out the sponsored link for Opera GX. I'm 99.9% certain you will like it more than whatever browser you're currently using. If you want to go beyond that and support me in the creation of this content, you can subscribe on Twitch, join the YouTube channel membership, or pledge on Patreon. A big thank you to everyone who has supported in the past, and the people who currently support me are shown on screen now. Have a wonderful day, and you'll see me in the next video.